Okay, so we're now up to ratios and we talked about this today. So I'm just going to race through the lessons that we learned. So lesson number one is we learned that the definition of ratio is basically how much of one thing there is compared to another thing. So you're comparing quantities. Lesson number two is we learned how to write a ratio in mathematical language. And I have an example here. So what you'll get in your test is a statement, and you'll have to convert that statement as a ratio. So this statement says circles to triangles. Now, to write this as a ratio in mathematics, all we have to do is count the number of circles. So we've got 1, 2. So we write the number 2, and then we count the triangles, 1, 2, 3. So now we write the number 3. And as you know, in mathematics, we write a ratio as a colon, or put another way, 2 dots, like so. Now, you'll know that in class, the word 2 is written in mathematics as a colon, as 2 dots. So that's the second lesson we learned today. Lesson number 3 is when we write the ratio, we have to make sure that we do not write it like this. This is incorrect. So we never include the measurement when we write the ratio. We only include the whole numbers. So the correct way to write this statement is to simply write it as follows. Just the whole numbers on their own without the measurements. So again, that's very important to remember. Okay, so moving on to lesson number 4. Today we learnt that when we write a ratio, we have to make sure that the measurements are the same. So if I was to write this ratio like this, that would be incorrect because the measurements need to be the same. At the moment, we have 8 centimeters and 1.3 meters. We need to make sure that in a ratio, we have whole numbers. That means that we need to make this larger measurement a smaller measurement. So we need to bring this down, the meters, down to centimeters. So this would be incorrect, what I've got here. So let's delete that. So the first thing we need to do is convert the 1.3 meters to centimeters so that they're the same. Now, in order to do that, all we have to do is times it by 100 because we know that there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So that means that this will now turn into 130, and now we have the same measurement. So now we can go ahead and write it as a ratio. So this would be the correct answer. So lesson number 5. We learned today ratios can be simplified. Just like fractions, we can simplify ratios as well. And by now, I would like to think that all of you should be professionals at simplifying. So if you want, you can press pause and go ahead and simplify these before I start doing it myself. Okay, so let's start with the first one. We're looking for one number that goes into both the 50 and the 15 equally. And as we know, in order to find that one number that goes into both numbers equally, we need to look at our times table and find both numbers in the same row or the same column. So let's try and do that. So now we are looking for the 50 and the 15. So I can see a 50 here in the multiples of 10, but there's no 15. So definitely the multiples of 10 won't go into both numbers. It'll go into 50, but not 15. So let me keep looking. I can see that there's a 15 here, and if I keep going along the multiples of 5, then I can see a 50 here as well. So now we know definitely that the common factor for both numbers is the number 5. So I'll go ahead and circle the 15 and the number 50. So I know that the number 50, 5 goes into 50 10 times because 50 divided by 5 equals 10. So I can go ahead and write the number 10. And I know that the number 5 goes into the number 15 3 times. How? Because 15 divided by 5 equals 3. So you should have got 10 to 3. Okay, so let's do the next one. So I have here 56 and 64. So again, if you want to find that one number that goes into both numbers equally, we need to look at our times table and find the 56 and the 64 in the same row. Now I can see that there's a number 56 here, so in the multiples of 7, but I don't see a number 64. So it can't be, the common factor for 56 and 64 cannot be 7 because it doesn't have 64. So I need to find something else. So I keep going and I keep looking, and I can see that there's a 56 and a 64 here. So now I found that common factor. It's the multiples of 8. So the common factor must be 8. So I can circle the 56 and the 64, and I know that 8 goes into 56 7 times, or put another way, 56 divided by 8 equals 7. So I can write that down. And 64 divided by 8 equals 8. Okay, so you should have got 7 to 8. So now let's try the last one here. So 88 and 132. So again, I do the same thing. I'm looking for 88 and 132. So I can see in the multiples of 8 that there is an 88 here, but if I keep going down, I don't find 132. So 8 for these two numbers isn't the common factor. I need to keep looking. So if I keep going down, I can see that there's an 88 here, and if I keep going along the multiples of 11, I can see that there is 132 here. So now we've found our common factor. It's 11. So let's go ahead and circle 88 and 132. Now I know definitely that the number 11 goes into both numbers because 88 divided by 11 equals 8. So we can go ahead and write that down. And 132 divided by 11 equals 12. So I can go ahead and write that down as well. Okay, so some of you will recognize that we can still actually simplify this further, which means that we didn't find that highest common factor. Now you'll know that the number 8 and the number 12 are actually in the multiples of 4, as you can see here. So we have 8 and 12. So we can use the number 4 now as our new common factor. So we can say 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now, this is okay to do this if you can't find the highest common factor. Now, if you're interested to know, the highest common factor is actually 44. 44 goes into 88 twice, and 44 goes into 132 3 times. But you won't see it in this times table because it only goes up to 25. But that's okay, so you can still find the highest common factor you can, and then the end result will tell you if you still need to simplify. In this case we did, and we just made an extra step. But the end result should be 2 to 3.